Hello both, and hello everyone. My name is Konstantinos Papakonstantinou. I'm the head of AI at Kaizen Gaming. I'm here to moderate this panel, try to extract as much as I can from a diverse group of experts. I think we're still missing Diomidis.
Are they invisible or are they missing?
We'll wait for Diomidis, yeah, I know, and I think we're still waiting for Abeba. We don't know if she's going to be joining. But I thought I'd give it a start anyway.
Yeah, we can do a small panel, right?
So, hi, Professor. Thank you for being here today. So I was kindly asked by the organizers to moderate these panels, and I started thinking to myself, so how do I moderate a panel on AI that consists of experts with so diverse background, right? That was a tricky part. So what did I do? I just went to ChatGPT and asked, what do you ask a panel of experts? And I think you know how this went, right? So I got the list of topics here, and we're not going to go through any of this, of course, but just to give you an idea, it's what you expect, trends, ethics, future of work, social impact, challenges, yada, 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 you know, like. So if you came prepared for this, this is not how it's going to go. So maybe my first question for the panel, and I don't know if you'd like to do also quick intros while we go along, is like, what is the one thing about AI nobody's currently talking about, but they should?
Okay, yeah, I think for me, it's very interesting because people want to go and use it to solve rigorous problems like coding and have it do things correctly. But I think that hallucination is built into the model pretty much that we have with AI right now. So the thing I find very fascinating is that now brainstorming is essentially free. You can ask for 3 solutions to any problem and compare and contrast them yourselves. And I think that's wonderful. So that's like an immediate use that quite often people shove aside in favor of the things like, can this thing code up the world for me? That kind of thing. So.
Go ahead, I'm still thinking.
One other thing that strikes me is survivorship bias. So we see all around us beautiful prompts and brilliant answers, but we don't see the answers that have been wrong, that have troubled developers or any users of AI. These are not usually published and made famous. When we see presentations, we see all the good results. Personally, I've had more than 200 times by now, I count them, at ChatGPT saying, I'm sorry, this is wrong what I've told you. And this is something we should keep into account and try to know the basics in order to be able to battle those hallucinations and errors that the generative AI is giving us.
I guess what I would add is, well, everyone's talking about everything, so I found it hard to come up with something people aren't talking about. But maybe one thing we should be thinking about more often is that most people get the wrong first impression when using this technology. You're using the kind of like the free version of ChatGPT, which is not super great. And then maybe normally when you're using it the first time, you don't have any prompt engineering skills. So you're using like not the best model and you lack key skills, which means you get the wrong impression of what this can do. So maybe just kind of like pay for a good model, go learn the basic prompt engineering skills, then you get so much more value out of it. So that's, I guess, something I want to remind everyone.
Thank you for this. So, and that's kind of an excellent pass for my next question. So you said people are using this technology, and I was wondering, is AI anything more than just a technology? Like there is all this buzz around this work and what AI can do. I'm a technologist myself, so I tend to think AI is just a technology, but I'd love to hear your views on that. Like what are we missing if we just treat it as a technology?
I guess you can kind of ask the same question about, is electricity just a technology? I guess yes, but it changes everything in our society. So I would put it in the same way that yes, it's just a technology, but I think it's changing our society in a very deep way.
In what way? Like you want to elaborate on this?
I guess that's a really good question. Let me think about that one for a little bit. What do you guys think? In what way is it really changing society?
I think we can't tell. We have no idea, you know. How did the car change society? How did television change society? And things that were just unanticipatable, you know. So I think it's, you know, the next 30 years are going to be very, very interesting. Yeah.
Every time we think that technology is just technology, I think we're starting to be humbled. everything technological affects society, and that often these are the most important things. What worries me a lot is how it makes some easy things easier, churn out routine code, but stumbles at the difficult things. And this means that it will be increasingly difficult to train and have junior developers go into their jobs, because these are things that can also be done with generative AI. And then we'll have a gap. How do we get then the experienced developers that we actually need and do the things that generative AI cannot do? It's a big worry for me.
For the time being.
I think for the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future. Okay, I'll
Can I add one to answer that original question, which I kind of quickly passed to you guys? I have one to add there, how it actually is changing society. I think it's democratizing things in a nice way. Like, until now, only programmers could program. But now, almost anyone can program. You won't be able to write fancy, big things, but small, simple coding things is now available to everyone. Same thing for most of human civilization, only rich people have had access to high-quality healthcare. When we get to a point where anybody in the world has access to a pretty good medical chatbot, now you get suddenly access to maybe good education, good healthcare that before wasn't really possible. So in that sense, I think it's changing society in a very big way.
That's an amazing benefit, and we're missing Abeba, who was going to talk about potential benefits and proven risks, but that sounds like a proven benefit already. What other proven benefits can you think about AI will have in the near future?
Can you repeat the first part?
What other benefits do you think
proven
AI
benefits,
proven
right?
benefits will have in the near future?
As programmers? Or just in general?
In general.
Yeah, I guess I'd go back to what Henrik was saying. It's kind of like there are many things that are underway right now. I think the thing that's going to be interesting is that it forces you to ask better questions. I won't say it forces you, but it's like if you ever are of an inquisitive mind, you can learn so many things. So I think in some way it's kind of like it's democratizing, but it's also kind of advantaging people that already know how to ask good questions and things like this. So there is this amplifier effect that is very pronounced. You know.
Indeed.
I'm getting answers from, I work at a university, so I nowadays get answers from students that are brilliantly written, and 3 years ago I would give them a 10. I know they're written by ChatGPT, and now I have to ask, what value are you adding? And this brings us to having to ask more deeper questions and adding value at a higher level. This is becoming more difficult, as you said.
I want to touch upon also topics that you guys discussed during your presentations. Like, I think I have written here for Henrik, the AI co-worker, and for Michael, the org and tech change. So I want to focus a little bit on the future of work. So lots of discussion out there how AI is going to transform the way we work. Lots of discussion, and I think some concern: is it going to replace jobs or not? And maybe that kind of steers us towards considering AI as an assistant for the time being, so we don't kind of face the reality. And do you guys believe that AI will just bring us assistants, or do you believe that will bring us co-workers, and it will eventually bring us managers, and it will eventually run organizations on its own?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. It's a funny thing with this too, because right now we're in a supervisory role, right? So essentially we ask things to be generated, we ask for responses, and it's up to us to go and actually decide whether these things are good enough, you know, for whatever situation that we want to go and deal with. Letting things become autonomous, you know, it's an interesting thing, but it feels like it needs to be bounded, and you're always showing ways that basically it breaks the bounding sometimes, depending upon what's available to us. So I think there's an awful lot of work to be done to go and actually sort of let things run autonomously, and it's...
Yeah, I've noticed an interesting flipping of the script lately with our autonomous experiments, but one of our other bots ran into some problem and it couldn't solve it. So then it started searching around on our Slack for a support channel. And basically, long story short, it did research on the problem it had, and then it prompted us. It prompted the human. Yeah. I need you to do this to solve my problem. So I guess one consequence of autonomy is that it will be maybe prompting going both ways. Sometimes human prompting the AI, sometimes AI prompting the human.
We have to realize the limits of this technology. As humans, we tend to anthropomorphize things, and if we see an interface that talks like a human, we think it's a human. I found it doing this myself, even though I know better. I was 2 days ago trying to ask ChatGPT some things about the problems with generative AI. I was trying to be kind to it, thinking maybe it will get offended by researching this stuff. So it's very difficult to go behind that wall, but we need to do it. And despite the claims and the hype, these things cannot reason. And what we think as reasoning are just answers plucked from a vast space that has been used for training. When they go out from that space, they are completely hopeless. When ChatGPT 4.0 came out, I asked it to devise a board game and then asked it to play against me. The game was brilliant. I think it was based on things that one can find. When I asked it to play against me, it lost in 2 moves. I played against children who bet me or lost in something like 10 moves. Absolutely no reasoning. And this is something we need to take into account and limit our expectations regarding autonomy.
Maybe we try to narrow it down, Diomidis. I think you've been an author of a couple of books on coding. Award-winning books.
Others here.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, all of you. That's great. So how about coding? How fast do you think we'll be at a state where no human intervention is required in order to code a website, a system, a platform, an app?
You mentioned prompting earlier. When you want to get exactly the system you want to prompt it in a very correct and precise way, and this is called the programming language. So maybe what we term coding will change in what language we will be using, but always you will need a precise understanding, and this comes from higher levels, understanding the organization, the humans, and this is not something that a machine that doesn't have this experience can do. So there are absolute limits.
So not in the near future is what I hear. Not in the far future is what I hear.
No.
I think you asked to use the phrase human intervention, and I would say that as long as the product being built is intended to be used by humans, then human intervention, aka human feedback, will be needed regardless. So the human will need to be in the loop. But will the programmer need to be writing code and looking at the code? I think code itself as a concept is going to disappear a little bit because code is human speak. Your code gets translated to machine code, and we never look at that. We just trust that it's correct. So I think that this intermediary layer of writing something that humans need to understand, now the AI is not good enough, so the human needs to also look at it. But as it gets better and better, my guess we'll go directly from human communication to machine code, and then kind of skip that middleman. But yeah, just a speculation.
I see a sense agreement.
Yeah. It's like I was thinking about that a while back. Essentially you might get to the point where you don't even have a repository. You basically have something which is trained to solve a problem, and it can create code representations if you really need something like that.
Yeah, on demand maybe. Yeah.
But it's a strange thing because the hallucination thing, and it's kind of like, so, I don't know. People love embedding LLMs and things now. That's the thing that people are experimenting with. So I feel there's probably still going to be a place for mission critical code where we basically want to go and basically reduce all the stochasticity, the randomness to zero, as much as possible. For some domains, I guess.
It might even be case by case. Like some code, the code that's really critical, you just focus on that. While other parts will be like, I don't care about that. It's not as important. Yeah. Just let that be AI driven entirely. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's moving fast.
Trivial, tiring tasks will be delegated to AI. In a sense, is what you're trying to say. I tend to think that, and when we said human intervention, I meant purely in the development cycle and excluding sign-off or quality assurance or actually approving the product to make it to human. So we can always think of kind of an evaluation part where a human will be part of that. But do you think that the development part we are far away from, and I'm sorry for going back to this, from being fully automated, like the actual development part?
So, if I understood the question, what was the question? Do we think that the kind of coding part will go away from and not be a human task at all?
Right.
Was that? Yeah. What do you think?
Experts.
So there's an echo, and it's difficult to understand. Your question is?
If the actual development part will be fully automated with no human intervention. Again, no.
Whenever we climb as society and we successfully automate something, this enables us to hire quality roles. So for instance, now there are no telephone operators because we have automatic dialing, but we have help desks that help us navigate business processes and things that have become possible through the telephone. And as generative AI allows us to become more productive as developers, and I'm a huge fan of it, I use it tens of times every day when I program, we will do higher level stuff, more difficult stuff that AI will not be able to do. This has been the history of humanity, climbing and always being higher and letting machines do the more mundane stuff.
Clear, okay. With consistent responses, I think I'll just move on. I'm just trying to be convinced that indeed it will not be automated. But let's maybe move to org and tech change, since Michael talked about this today. And how do you think AI being introduced in different organizations has been taken into account, and has this change being managed efficiently and effectively? And to what extent do you need actually to form programs to manage specifically the change of AI introduction into the organizations? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I know it's
kind of tough because there's a little bit of an echo here.
Right.
Maybe repeat the question without the mic, and we'll hear it.
So what I'm trying to say is there's plenty of work done, and
Actually,
a lot.
If they heard the question, could you just basically say to me without the mic?
If you repeat the question without the mic, we'll hear it better.
Okay, so the sound is bad.
Yeah, just like this.
Just speak to me directly for 1 second.
Sounded bad by the way on the way back. Just all I'm saying is org and tech change, right? That's something that you have worked on and it's been discussed a lot. Mm-hmm. How much do you think now that we need to take the introduction of AI in the organizations and manage the change that is coming through it?
All right. You can go back to the mic now again.
All right, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's. I think people are going to try out many different things, and it's. Yeah, I think, from the point of view of being an assistant, I guess, as part of the team. Yeah, I don't know. I think that we might be able to go and get away with having fewer people involved in particular things, right? There's many things that are teamwork things right now just because of their scale. And it might be that you have like 1 or 2 developers working together with a series of, AI agents to help them do things and be able to do a lot of work that was previously done by larger groups of people. The thing about this, though, is that that's a very temporary effect, I think. It's interesting because whenever there's a new technology, people go ahead and get excited and they use it and everything like this. And they think, oh, that's going to solve all the problems. But human beings always want more than they have, right? So it's kind of like once we are able to go and solve one class of problems, people are going to want more complicated applications and things like this. There's a little bit of a treadmill that we basically go on with development. People are always going to want more than we can produce, even with AI. Yeah.
How about the way we work together? We know we're going to get fewer jobs, that's right, and we have to manage that. But how about the way we work with each other? How would that be affected, and how do we need to manage that one?
I'm not sure there will be fewer jobs. I think there'll be lots of smaller teams. Right. But there's going to be an explosion, I think, of, as long as people need capability, you'll probably have a lot of people that know how to speak to AI well enough to produce things. So I think it's the opposite.
There's also this aspect of we just invent new jobs. We've always done that. Most jobs we have now didn't exist 100 years ago, and they would laugh at us if they saw us. So I think we'll probably some jobs that we think are really important today will go away, and then we'll make up new jobs that we think are really important, probably.
And how about the way we work together? Do you think that will change with introduction of AI more and more in organizations?
I guess I think what's an interesting question related to that is what does not change. And all this stuff is changing, but humans are humans, and we'll probably be the same, and we like to work together. Mm-hmm. And we work best together. So I think the notion of people working in teams is going to stay.
Yeah.
But it's just that you'll have an AI colleague in that team, probably.
Yeah, one thing I'm finding very interesting right now is that basically a lot of AI understands what you intend very quickly. So if I want to write unit tests, for instance, I can write in a very scratch way what I want, and it will generate things and be very close to what I need. So we might start developing little languages, that are almost private, not things that would be, across the entire industry, but maybe the 3 of us and our LLM know how to speak to it and get things done with a minimal amount of prompting. You know, I think that kind of thing where you...
A domain-specific language kind of almost...
Exactly, yeah, very much so. I think that's a possibility.
You want to add something, Diomidis, or shall we move on?
Organizations need to manage the introduction of AI better. I think it's underutilized in many organizations. Developers should have prime access to generative AI chatting mechanism, should be trained what are the appropriate and useful cases and where they should pay attention. They should learn the best ways to use AI. If they are not using it, they are underutilizing a very valuable technology. And in this, I think we have progress to make.
Yeah, I like the comparison to internet in the same way, like when internet came. Now internet, every person in the company uses internet in one way or another. But before internet came, that wasn't the case. So pretty much everyone has had to change in some way. And I think that's what's happening now. And I kind of see it as a three-step process. One is make sure everyone has access to a good model. Just start there, because there's all kinds of bureaucratic hurdles. And then step two, try to create a culture of experimentation where people are encouraged to just try lots of ideas, see what's possible to do. And only then are you really equipped to do the third step, which is leverage it and actually get serious value out of it. But I think a lot of companies miss out because they either don't give people access to good models, or they don't let them experiment and play around, or they don't have a structured approach to finding where is that real value in it.
Wouldn't you say, though, that internet actually impacted the way we work together as a people? I mean, I understand, like, teamwork is at the center of success and will continue to be so. But indeed, internet is a good example. Hasn't internet affected the way we work with each other? Like, and along with the internet, of course, connectivity, remote, all the kind of instant messaging and video messaging tools that enables you to work from wherever, that's had a huge impact. So you don't see a kind of a similar impact coming from AI and generative AI in the way we work and collaborate with each other?
The internet was by definition a communication mechanism. Mm-hmm. Generative AI is something different. So I think it will affect less the cooperation and more other aspects of our work.
Okay. So I'll just drop a last question, and then my friend here will ask you a few more. So we talked about a lot about the future of work, and I want to close with the kind of future of creativity and arts and how that will be impacted by AI. And maybe we'll close with that, since you mentioned, Diomidis, a lot about Gen AI, and we know that's where we have seen the biggest step change compared to a few years ago, right? So how do you think arts will be impacted, whether it is all different kind of arts, in the long run, because of AI now being able to generate content that we find of amusing and relevant?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting with art because it's almost like photography. Basically, people felt that realistic painting was going to go away because of photography in the early days. And you know, what's interesting about this is any technology that makes things easy also makes them less status in a way also. So you'll see this pattern where it's kind of like, if anybody can make art in this particular way, then that's the art we don't care about quite so much, right? So there's this thing that kind of happens where we kind of progress, and quite often you'll see artists misuse technology in interesting and creative ways in order to do things that people didn't anticipate in the past. And I think we're going to start to see some of those things. Very much like, you know, people are going and doing trick photography and stuff like this to go and get artistic effect that you wouldn't get just by taking a straight camera shot. So I think arts are going to be, you know, a bit of a renaissance, you know, as they basically learn how to exploit the technology to do new and interesting things. That's my sense. That's
interesting. It's like even now, prompting is becoming an art in itself. People show off on X, look at this awesome video I generated, and that's a lot of work to figure out. It's like you're giving feedback to the model, and so the AI is doing the grunt work, but the human is kind of in creative control in that sense. Yeah. But I also think that we love creating things. It's kind of human nature. So even though, for example, like computers have been better at playing chess for decades now, but humans still play chess because we like to play chess. So I think we'll continue playing music and making art regardless of how good the AI gets at it. It'll just get maybe a bit harder to get paid for some parts of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jens. Let's also get an opportunity for our guests to ask a couple of questions, one or two questions. So, I mean, we've had awesome presentations today. We have a gentleman over here who raised his hand. So.
Hi, I have two questions. I don't know if it's one. Okay, let's go to the first one. It's about the energy that is consumed right now for AI is around the same that is used to power a country like Germany or Switzerland. Do you know if there is any, because you understand the impact that this has to the environment, do you think there is any action to limit that or something else that is happening that could ease off this consumption?
I guess, yeah.
No, I was going to say, it is a concern, but it's also just the general thing that happens with progress. As we need more energy, we develop more efficient ways of producing it, greener ways of going and doing things as well, right? So it can spur innovation also, but I agree that basically in the near term, if it has us using more fossil fuels, may not be so good. It's very hard because whenever you do something new, we don't ever really know completely what the effects are going to be. So I think there's a bet that the world is making right now that we're going to have positive effects of these things that will be able to go and help us, move beyond some of the situations and problems we're in now. I guess we'll see. I don't know.
Still the early days, and we are putting raw power in order to get this benefit. But there is no reason to believe that you actually need all this power to get these things. People are experimenting with smaller models, with less accuracy in the weights, and we are seeing very interesting results, or using federated models where each small model takes a specific task. And I think in the coming years, we'll see a lot more efficiency brought in. The same thing if you compare the efficiency of an early locomotive to a modern car. It's orders of magnitude more efficient because technology has advanced. I think we'll see the same way in generative AI.
Another source of optimism there, I completely agree with this. We're on this trajectory, we're very early. Right now it's horrible, it uses too much energy, but it's very, very quickly changing all the time. But we also have a very good data point, which is this meat bag inside our head, right? It's incredibly, ridiculously efficient at reasoning, and it takes no energy at all. So we know it's possible, so it's just that we got to keep improving the architecture.
Another gentleman over here who wants a question.
Thank you for this great conversation. I just wanted to ask, since AI is a very powerful tool and can be used in any way, is there any way, do you think we should regulate the use of this technology, because we could use it in malicious ways like dark GPT or something? So what is your thought on this?
What's the
question about, should we regulate, basically?
Should we regulate it, or?
Well, we're just going to offer an opinion on this. I think regulation is great, and it's important that we basically make all the efforts we can for regulation. But we do have to recognize that with any technology, there's always a frontier use case where people are doing things that are stepping outside of the regulatory framework. And either it happens in other countries which aren't regulating yet, or it happens stealth. So I think it's one of those things. We have to admit that we can't fully regulate this kind of stuff, right? But that doesn't prevent us from going and doing a good effort to go and basically maintain safety for society as much as we can.
Yeah, I think there's some kind of, I'm really not an expert in this area, but there's some things I'm hoping for in terms of regulation. Simple things like I don't mind talking to an AI help desk, for example, but I at least want to know it's an AI that I'm talking to. I hope we get at least regulation that don't pretend to not be an AI if you are an AI, those kind of things. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
There's a fine line between having effective regulation, such as in this case, which I absolutely agree, and regulating AI out of existence in particular areas. We are very good at it in Europe. We don't want that to happen. And also we need to be realistic. Since we now have models that can run on our laptops, some uses of AI which may be undesirable cannot be regulated anymore. The cat is out of the bag.
One more? One more.
One last.
Hello. I was wondering, we are like 8 billion people on Earth, so some of them don't have water, some of them don't have electricity, a big chunk doesn't have internet, a huge chunk doesn't even know what ChatGPT is, and etc. I think you get my point. So I was wondering, okay, AI will change the life of everybody in this room, probably. But when we talk about the humanity, that AI will change humanity, is it a bit an exaggeration or a hype? Or do you see that it will affect everybody despite the facts that I mentioned.
I would go back to the healthcare thing that Henrik was mentioning a little bit earlier. It's going to be very, very easy to go and get good diagnostic medical care. You know, I think that's something which is just going to happen. I guess the question is whether people have access to it, and I think there are things we can do politically to do things with that. Whether we do those or not, I don't know. I hope so. You know?
And I guess there will be a lagging effect. I mean, in the beginning when the internet came, only the rich few could use it, and they would get an incredible advantage. But now, okay, not everyone in the world has access to it, but you know, a lot more people now than in the past. You don't have to be rich to have access to internet. So it's becoming more democratized in that sense. And I think it'll be kind of the same with AI, that over time the cost comes down. As internet spreads, AI also spreads, more and more people can use it. But I think we can't get away from the fact that there will be an inequality, because there's always going to be some percentage of the population with no electricity and no internet. And they are going to, of course, miss out on this as well.
And this democratization is also helping those that need it most. So it can help a lot in education. People who would have, will be able to have a personalized tutor that will go through them and help their learning process. And these are things that in the past were affordable only to those who had the resources, considerable resources to do it. So this is another advantage. But of course, let's not underestimate our ability as humans to kill each other and inflict catastrophes as we see now in so many places in the world.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great panel discussion.